You made it to the last topic in our class. Hooray! We're going to continue using some of the ideas from the last video on content and systems as a basis here to unravel a bit of the mystery behind content architecture. I believe it's something everyone in content should at least be aware of because it's so foundational. Content architecture is important and yet another one of those invisible forces with an unquantified impact on your content. Most of the time it just slips past everyone's attention because it's not seen, it's literally not a visual thing. Now you might get a glimpse of it through an isolated meta tag someplace. The big underlying structure may never be exposed to you. And if you're thinking holistically, you'll need to discover it. And why? Well, content architecture is the thing that links your content strategy to its execution or implementation. I mean, how many times have you had a great idea or a solution only to hear, oh yeah, the system, it can't do that? Well, more often than not, it's not about the system so much as it is about the content architecture that's not enabling it. And at some point in your content strategy work, you realize you can't do everything that you need to do if you do nothing about the architecture. The thing is, a lot of folks have this mistaken belief that content architecture is an engineering thing. Well, it's not. I don't believe that it is. And I would argue it is really more a logical design. And when it gets coded by developers, at that point, yes, it's technical, but in its creation, no. It's kind of similar to your content in that way. It's technical in its coding, but not in its creation. You don't have to be an engineer to get involved. A conceptual understanding of content architecture is enough to partner well with your friends who build and implement. So let's spend the rest of our time on gaining some of that conceptual understanding. It all starts with your domain and models. Ready? At the base of your content architecture is the domain. The domain is the world that you're in, the world that your product, your partners, customers, you, and your fellow teammates live in. And that world is both real and somehow inferred or assumed. And into it, our domain is finance, and for QuickBooks, accounting, for TurboTax, taxes, for Mint, personal finance. Our products also exist outside of our company in other countries around the world. They also exist in the world where we have a range of financial experts and novices and types of experts and types of customers and users like small business owners and individuals. A domain captures their language and their knowledge as concepts and relationships represented in the world that they're all living in. Sound familiar? Yes, video number 6 on content and systems. So maybe you think you've never encountered a domain. You probably never saw one, but it's what gives a single piece of content meaning. It's not all coming from that content or the page or flow even. Your content depends on the meaning present in the context of your domain as that is in the world outside your digital life. So you design architecture from the external world in and your content out. And once you start looking at content as something outside screens, you might start to imagine it like this big, floating, shapeless pool of stuff. And you no longer use web pages as the mechanism for organizing it. So the next question is, how do you organize it? And the answer is models. A model defines all of those things and their relationships between them. It comes down to language, really, and writers, you can bring a user orientation that's often inaccessible to engineering teams. Again, it's outside in about that real world of your domain. And unlike people, you have to deal with computers who can't infer anything, at least not yet. They need explicit definitions from us because we need to give them instructions, like what to do with our content, how to work for us as strategists, okay? So you might be surprised that content architecture is more about words than you might have thought because of this need for language expertise and customer expertise. As a content strategist, you'll want to be part of that work alongside engineers, especially when it's time to build something that is new. This illustration by Mike Atherton and Carrie Hain makes this all a bit more plain to see. It shows content architecture as it guides content creation and storage, publishing, and rendering in an experience. Typically, models are designed bottom to top. There are many kinds of models and ways to model, depending on its purpose and the kind of project, where you are in the project, who you're working with. A single project could require more than several. And I'm going to just speed through some pieces of modeling work to show you that content architecture iceberg, and really just a general idea, a general example of how modeling puts the content onto the screen. Our team starts by creating a set of very rough concept maps, and these are the things and the connections in our world, our domain of accounting, and the product QuickBooks. And the maps are iterated with a variety of inputs and a lot of conversations and interviews with people. So you can keep an eye on that node there for credit, and we'll kind of follow its way through here. From all of those, we design a domain model. And this was done by Morgan Kimbrell, the awesome content architect on my team. It gets to a clearer, decided design of what those things are and how they're connected, and also includes the kind of relationship. So at QuickBooks, you can look, we have a lot of many-to-one relationships here. You can also have one-to-many, many-to-many, and so on. Some things like languages, we pulled in from external web standards, so we don't want to define them ourselves. We want to be consistent with just web standards in general. And our team advocates for this kind of stuff constantly, so we set them in blue to show our intent clearly here for the teams that will use the model. With a domain design, we could start to define the content types, like titles, images, steps. What are the parts that combine to create a whole article in this case? And what metadata is needed to describe and categorize the content as it expresses our domain. And this threads into the template that we'll use in WordPress. You can see there are those fields for the content types and the names as well. And there's that little credit topic in pink. And then here is the actual content that's written to those types. There's the title, intro, steps, video, and again, our topic circled off in pink. And last, we have the site navigation, which is that topmost layer in the stack. The navigation really is that tip of the iceberg, and here we have the added relationships that are hierarchical, and that's done to enable browsing up and down in an experience, but really it's such a small set of nodes or concepts when you look at it compared to that underlying structure, the horizontal relationships that are sitting underneath. And those are used more for search, filtering, auto-suggest, auto-tagging the content. Like this navigation, I think, has about 245 concepts, whereas the larger structure it's linked to is made of about 1,500 with like 4,000 relationships. Ideally, you will have one domain and several models. And the key is that they are aligned. But I'm going to tell you, that's not always what you inherit or what these things can evolve into over time. And when they aren't, stuff just happens. Like, you can't maintain your content. It becomes difficult to design coherent experiences. Google doesn't understand your content. Searchers can't find what they need. And customers are getting trapped by errors and mistakes, just a lot of irrelevant content to wade through. As a content strategist, it's very difficult to deliver on your strategies and teams to innovate and improve on problems for customers. You avoid all of this by maintaining a consistency between your models through that stack, bottom to top, and maybe end to end too. From my experience, this doesn't happen by throwing content architecture in with other engineering tasks just because they need to build the stuff. Content architecture is a specialized expertise that not everyone brings to the work. This may be one of the largest impacts a content strategist can have on content overall. Championing good architecture design and asking for the models to be shared and vetted widely. Okay, we've stepped through those models. So, what's the thread holding it all together? What gives it that consistency? It's your taxonomy. I used to always joke, like, when I say taxonomy, you say yay. I'm a huge fan. And guess what? It's made of concepts and relationships. Yay! Taxonomy describes your domain through a structure that includes the relevant categories, concepts, relationships, terms, and definitions. It also provides uniform organization to your content that makes it findable, relatable, discoverable, and it powers innovation, machine learning, dynamic and personalized content, and interoperability between services, ecosystems, and more. Raters, the organizing structure of taxonomy, is made of language. In fact, the other name for it is controlled vocabulary. So go check it out. You may find you have more in common than you imagine. For me, it opened up a whole new exciting area to learn about. Maybe you'll find the same for you. Taxonomy is like a data structure, only it's made of words. It accounts for multiple relationships within and across facets. And here's an example from the One Intuit taxonomy. So you can see first we have relationships between product attributes. So, for example, between language, Portuguese Brazil, and a region, Brazil, South America. We have a relationship between the region and the product, QuickBooks Zero Paper. Between a product and a topic, say access system remotely. Between a role, like worker and topic. And that topic is related to other topics, like data security. And say that topic is published via article, but not video. So you can see really the depths that you can get into with this kind of mapping of relationships. So my team uses the Pool Party platform to manage it. If you're naming these things differently, defining them differently, it's just really hard to link them together. Plus, there's only so many relationships that a person's brain can possibly hold in their head without going over the edge. So Pool Party helps us do these definitions and the mappings while helping us avoid circular logic and just duplication of the concepts and relations. Taxonomy, or its super fancy version, which is called ontology, is providing a semantic layer to Intuit's platform architecture. And we're also venturing out of content now into the world of data as our engineers try and bring it together in a more harmonious, high quality, maybe even uniform fashion. Pool Party also uses a structure. It's a standard called Simple Knowledge Organization System, or SKOS. And SKOS is for what? Modeling vocabulary. So you can see on here there's preferred label, alternative label, that's like synonym equivalents. You have broader, narrower terms, and a whole lot more. And this screen really fleshes out one concept here. As an example, manage access. And it's basically metadata then that can be called by an API to provide this information for building the experiences that are part of your content strategy. The taxonomy is expressed then through metadata. Like all that stuff that you saw in Pool Party is basically like one object. The metadata are bite-sized pieces of information that attach to and describe certain aspects of a piece of content. So to me, metadata is essentially a capability that lets us design the content experience because it adds structure, allows us to break the content apart into types, off of screens, and bring it back together in different places. And we apply logic to it to display it in a more dynamically targeted fashion. You can use metadata basically to classify your content to the taxonomy by tagging it, expressing those multiple relationships, layering more information onto your content, and also just like things you don't want to deal with or just ignore in this particular experience. And you could even debate whether metadata is content. And regardless of where you stand, wherever you fall on that discussion, metadata is a critical part of your strategy. So consider it, make it part of your strategy. It's more of that largely invisible yet critical stuff. Because your content architecture can limit or enable your strategy, it's got to move beyond writing or messaging. Your content won't even get to the screen without a well-designed content architecture. So it's not really a question of if you do it, but how. And at Intuit, we focus on how our content is architected as much as the content itself, and that's still not enough. That is not a technical question either, so get involved. If you don't, engineers will make decisions for you. And I always hear how, well, you don't want them writing error messages. Well, don't be absent for the structuring of your content and its architecture. I hope that this video gave you just a quick view of the iceberg and a little better understanding. It's a vast and abstract topic to get your brain around. So if you ever want to chat more about content architecture, just message me. I would love to talk to you. It's a great topic.